Hey everybody, welcome back to the vlog. Thank you so much for joining me once again for tea time. Well, today is a little bit different. We're going live, right? We're doing a week in review. Some of you folks have been asking me to do this for some time, and I said, let's go ahead and do it. I love doing the live stuff, and what I did is I brought, once again, Trevor Current with me. So let me go ahead and bring him on and we'll kind of get into it. Today is going to be just a hanging out fun time, I guess you would say, just to be able to just discuss what happened this week. There's a lot of cool things going on. So anyways, how's it going, Trevor?
Hey, it's going good. How are you doing?
Not bad, not bad. I figured, today would be a good day for us to just hang out and just kind of shoot it a little bit and talk about some of these crazy events that happened over the course of the week. And there has been a lot. But before I get into it, I want to say two things. Number one, if you guys haven't downloaded my ebook yet, go and download it. You can find it over at jchristina.com/ebook. Once again, jchristina.com/ebook. 10 tips to making tax sharp images. Download it. There's something there for amateurs, professionals, something for everyone. Once again, jchristina.com/ebook. So, second thing, Trevor, tell everyone who you are, and then we'll kind of get right into it and see, what we see. Talk about all the stuff that's been going on here.
Yeah, sure. I'm Trevor Current, and I am a graphic designer, a web designer. I've been doing this stuff for over 30 years. Also do photography. So that's kind of how Joe and I hooked up in the first place years ago, probably about 10 years ago now. And we had done the Digital Photography Cafe show, the podcast and YouTube channel for many years. And Joe started with his channel, and now I'm kind of doing my own thing over here and keeping very busy with that. And it's fun to jump in every once in a while and talk photography with Joe.
Absolutely. Talk tech, talk photo, talk whatever. That's the one thing about the channel is I do a lot of photography stuff, but I'm a tech head, I'm a system administrator, I do a lot of other things. I'm a fine artist, so I paint, I draw. There's always something going on. I'm not kind of just like this one trick pony, I guess. There's just a lot of stuff. And I would, if I had time, I would have like 3 or 4 different channels, but I just don't. And my focus, of course, I'm a full-time professional photographer and videographer for 20 years or so. So it is what it is. The photo stuff takes precedent over the rest of the stuff, but I still love it all. So I might start throwing in more tech stuff. A lot of you guys were asking me about my Unraid server. So I might do a series on that, or I might do something to kind of help you guys out, because I know with you, Trevor, you do a lot with I think it's Drobo is who you use to, secure your data. For me, I'm not a fan of RAID, so I ended up going with this whole Unraid thing, and I absolutely love it. So we'll kind of we'll get into it. And, I'll probably get more into the whole Unraid thing later on because a lot of people have been asking for it. So anyways, this week, let me just start out kind of from the top. Yesterday's video that I did, or I guess I released it this morning, it had to do with sub $1,000 full frame cameras, full frame mirrorless cameras. And we were talking about it. There's a lot of discussion on it. And I want to kind of get people's thoughts about it and get your thoughts also, because for me, when I see that a lot of these manufacturers are putting out there these full frame mirrorless cameras literally under $1,000, it makes me think like, well, what is going to happen with APS-C and certainly Micro Four Thirds when you have sub 1,000 on the full frame? Now that doesn't mean that full frame is by the de facto better, because better is kind of it has to do with what you're shooting, right? There's a good camera, or the best camera for a specific, let's say, situation, but there's no one good camera that covers everything. So, but the thing that I addressed in the video was that the perceived value of the APS-C and the Micro Four Thirds will slowly deplete as we see that the cost of the full frame gets lower and lower and lower, because people will say, well, I can get a sensor this big for the same price as a sensor this big. or even less at some point. So is there any reason to buy the smaller sensor? So that's kind of the thing that I was thinking about. What do you think, Trev?
Yeah, I know. I watched your video this morning and kind of got up to speed on it. And, I think it's the manufacturers trying to keep up with what consumers want. And I would say what they really want. Anybody that's into photography, has heard about the different size sensors and has heard, full frame is really what you would want to be at. But sometimes micro four thirds is better because you want a smaller bodied camera. APS-C because the price point is a little bit lower, but still a bigger sensor. Kind of going into the demands of what people want. If they want that full frame sensor, but can't afford the higher end bodies that have it, they're trying to give them something at that lower price point. And
Right.
we were talking earlier, I kind of equate it to cars. I in the past, you would spend a lot of money and you get a high-end car that had all the bells and whistles.
Right.
And a lot of people just can't afford all those bells and whistles, but they still want the car. They want to get into a vehicle. So they make the lower price version of that. Well, the perception is now, technology and everything that's available, it's like people want the bells and whistles. And if they can put it in the lower end models to kind of get them in the camp, that's what they do. And, as we know, it's all about glass. So assuming these cameras all use the same lens mount, get them in the door at a lower price, get them to buy lenses, and eventually they'll see that they love the camera and want to upgrade bodies. And now they've got them in there.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think it makes sense.
It does. It really does. Like the way I see this is that, bringing people into an ecosystem is so very important. And a lot of the companies are starting to figure it out. We know that bodies are like toilet paper, you toss them all the time. Whereas lenses, they're usually a lifetime, right? Of course, you're going to
Yeah.
be they're going to slowly get rid of certain lenses and bring in new lenses and whatnot, like Canon did with, now they have their RF line. Their EF line has been around for, I don't know, 50 years, 100 years, I don't know, been around forever, right? So they haven't gone anywhere.
Yeah.
And
Right.
you can buy adapters and still use those lenses if you want. So lenses do live on, whereas bodies just don't. So when folks ask me, Joe, I want to get, I have this extra money. I have a camera, but I don't know, I might want to buy the latest upgrade to that camera, but I don't know if I should. The question always is, well, do you need the other camera? Is there something the other camera does that your current one doesn't do that will maybe make you more money or make you happier, then it might be something to look at. But most of the time, your best bet is to buy a high-end piece of glass. That lens is
Right.
going to do more than another body will, for the most part. So anyways,
Yeah.
it's something to think about. There's a lot of people that don't really get that. And now we have that perceived value, like I was saying, that the perceived value is definitely changing. And people are looking at the APS-C and the micro four thirds as being, I don't know. I could get a full frame for this. Why bother? Even though they're not
Yeah.
understanding that a lot of these full frame cheapies, let's say, they have a lot of deficiencies to them, and there's a lot of things that you can't do. So this is the type
Right.
of thing you have to look at. What does the camera do? And does it do what you need it to do or not? And not always look at the sensor size. I am a full frame shooter, but I have some APS-C. Also, I would never use a micro four thirds. I don't like the format very much, and it's just not for me. I don't need travel. I am a
Right.
full-time professional. I shoot 1Ds. I'll shoot, and they're heavy. It's like a brick. So, for me, it's
Yeah.
not something that it really makes too much of a difference one way or another. I have to say, Long Rider, he contributed $5. I really do appreciate that. That's wonderful. I do appreciate that. That's fantastic. Thanks for the support. But looking into it, as far as the cameras that you're looking at, Trevor, would you look at an APS-C today now that we have full frame at $900? Is it something that you would do? Because I know you currently shoot APS-C.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so ideally full frame, of course, but you got to look at the usage, like what you said, and and the price associated with it. So, for me, I've got a DSLR that I use and that I like, and it's good enough for my needs. It's old, but for the amount of shooting that I do not shoot professionally like for the day-to-day job. I do commercial work for my clients, but it's not like I'm out there drumming up photography business every day. Most of the shooting I do is for fun, for me. So, the APS-C sensor that I have works great for me. If I were to get a new camera, and we talked about this previously, like with the Canon, the R5 and the R6, I would be interested in the R6 because of its video capabilities.
Right.
I like the idea of having a excellent camera, to shoot photos with, but also something that's going to do phenomenal video. And
Right.
that's really where I'm leaning more towards now. Like, I don't want a traditional video camera, I want that hybrid camera.
Right.
And knowing that this could do such a great job, that's really where I would be leaning. Now, if there was an APS-C that I felt would do just as good of a job, but maybe either was less expensive or had a certain feature or something that I really want or need, then I would buy APS-C. I don't
Right.
have anything against that. I have no interest in Micro Four Thirds, pretty much for everything that you and I have talked about over the years. At that point, you can get a really good image and video from your iPhone.
Yeah, and a lot of people do. I mean, that is
Yeah.
definitely a thing. And I think that what is strange, and I actually really like, people are not discussing as much, is it DSLR, is it mirrorless? Most of the stuff are mirrorless now, but it's, it's more now like, how does it do in video? How
Right.
is the video? How is the video? And it's strange because, I've been shooting since film, and, as things came up to like the 5D Mark II, where things really changed and video was the thing, and now all of a sudden hybrid shooters were the name of the game. If you weren't a hybrid shooter, then what are you doing with your life, kind of thing, So I think that is very important to look at and say, well, are you looking for a camera that does photo really well, or do you need one that does video really well, or do you need something that does both okay, right? So there's not one camera out there, and that goes into overheating issues and a lot of other stuff that happens with some of the other manufacturers that we'll get into, but there's not one camera that will just do it. So you kind of want to focus in one direction or another. Now, David Santro over there, he said that Canon USA's website pulls up for him as not secure. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to load that up over here too, just to see if I'm getting the same thing over here or if I'm getting it as secure. So for me, Canon USA is pulling up as secure. Now, I don't know if that's a regional thing or whatnot, but that goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the week about this whole ransomware, and how
Right.
Canon got hit with ransomware by Maze, is the group that did it, and they stole a ton of data and they encrypted it and they locked it down, and literally a ton of Canon sites were offline. That's from Canon USA all the way to their photo sites and everything else in between, including internal websites. So that was a major, major issue. So is this something that is an issue where you have to kind of clear your browser out, where Google said, hey, Canon is insecure, or it's not a secure site? That could be an issue. You might want to clear your cache and see if you can go, or use a different browser. Instead of using IE, use Chrome or use Fire, whatever, and try something else to see if you can get into Canon USA, if you need to go there, and see if you can get there securely. So, but getting into that whole ransomware thing and away from the cameras a little bit, this is a major issue that we've seen with a lot of companies, the larger companies, the ones that have big purses, big pocketbooks, right? That have a lot of money in their coffers. They get hit with this ransomware and they're basically stuck, because what these what these groups like Maze will do is they will go in, they'll breach your security, they'll get admin access, and then what they'll do is they'll download all the data that they want and then take the data that's there, not delete it, but lock it down through encryption.
Yeah.
Maybe 2048 encryption, 4000, whatever it is, 4096 encryption, something that would literally take you 10 years to decrypt or even longer. So they do that, and now you're pretty much stuck. Did you end up hearing about that whole ransomware with Canon?
Yeah. Of course, being in the web space myself, I mean, this is always a concern that we worry about or, prepare for with our hosting clients.
Right, with contingency plans, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, for the most part, the types of clients that we have are not really going to be subjective to ransomware. They're associations, they're smaller corporations, what have you. They're not big entities like Canon USA. So they're not going to be the target. But something as simple as a site hack due to vulnerability or whatever, I mean, security like that is always a concern. And for a company like Canon, who probably has a state-of-the-art data center, with their servers on it and, top-notch people managing their servers and security, it's kind of surprising to me that this would have happened. But, sometimes all it takes is a weak password somewhere and you can find yourself compromised. So it could have even happened through a local PC where somebody had gained access to a local machine and found information needed to breach the server. So there's all kinds of ways that this could happen. The biggest thing that you could do is have your backups, be able to restore the site and get back up and running and, try and figure out where the breach came and fix it. But, as far as, these people with the ransomware trying to, grab your data and share it online for money, that, of course, is a big problem. And, having your data locked up is one thing, but having it to where they're threatening to share it publicly, I mean, that's another.
Yeah, and that is a major thing. It's the whole thing, whereas you can bring your systems back up online, let's say, but the problem is even though you bring those systems online, let's say, and Canon is back up, the problem is you have all of that data that's missing. Well, I guess it would be still there, but the problem is now some other entity has it, and any kind of private information now can leak, and now they are susceptible to lawsuit. The liability is so great. So what happens is a lot of these companies, they will pay the ransom, because if they don't, what will happen? Here in Florida, I think it was Pensacola, the city of Pensacola, they got hit with it, and I don't know, they paid like $1 million or $3 million or something crazy to be able to unlock their files, and that data doesn't end up on the interweb, everywhere out there, so that now instead of doing, sitting in the dark webs where it's very, hard to access, it's just on the internet and everyone can see it. That's a major issue. The other thing that I saw that happened with Canon was that their image.canon site went down. Now, Canon said no, it had nothing to do with this breach, which I thought was kind of odd because it happened right around the same time. I don't know. But what is really strange is what they said in a memo out to everyone is that all long-term storage of your photos, of your videos, of whatever, as of June 16th, like at, 9 o'clock or something, prior to that, every single thing is gone. All right, it is all gone. And I'm like, how is that even possible? Literally, it's all gone. But what they said is you can see your little thumbnails, but if you click on it, you're going to get an error. And yeah, you'll get an error 500, which is a server error because the file doesn't exist anymore. Well, if you're paying Canon for long-term storage and your long-term ends up turning into 2 months and all of a sudden it's gone, that's a major issue. And then you have cameras like the R5, the R6 and whatnot that allow you to upload straight to the cloud immediately through Wi-Fi as you're taking the pictures, and you get some, noob out there that's taking the pictures like, oh yeah, it's up in the cloud, whatever, delete the card, and now all of a sudden it's all gone and you have nothing.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I always talk about with people when it comes to dealing with the cloud. The cloud is a little bit scary because who is the cloud? Where is the cloud? And how secure is the cloud? And it doesn't matter who it is, let's say, with. Is it Canon? Is it Google? Is it, who do you trust these days? And just you and I, we saw a outage happen that took out many of websites last week. Remember that? And we were like, what is going on here? Who was that outage got hit with? It escapes me.
It was Cloudflare.
That's right.
Cloudflare is a DNS management service. They basically have an infrastructure designed to absorb DNS attacks, and they can disperse it out and what have you, and that way your servers directly don't get affected. But what happened is Cloudflare got slammed, they got taken down, and in the process, a lot of companies like Google, some of the Google sites or services that use Google's cloud platform, including Discord, they got slammed. Their sites basically were taken offline for, an extended period. I mean, I think it was 30 to 60 minutes, which is a significant amount. It was because of Cloudflare. So, the cloud is great, but the cloud really should be used as a backup, not a primary. And as with anything, don't put anything in the cloud that you don't want to get out there.
Yeah.
Once it's out of your local storage, your local hard drive sitting on your desk, and it gets out there, it stands the possibility of being, breached and taken and distributed in some way.
Yeah, so, once it's out, it's out.
I'm a firm believer you need to have 3 copies. You have your primary, you have a backup of your primary, either on location, and then you have to have that third backup somewhere else. And whether that somewhere else is using a NAS connected drive that's, that you have at a friend or a family member's house that's in sync, or you're using a cloud platform like Idrive or Wasabi or something like that. But you really need to have it in multiple places. Yeah. And just don't put anything out in the wild that you don't want to be in the wild.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. That was one of the reasons why I built that Unraid server, because I know you use Drobo. You like the way Drobo works and whatnot. And I built the Unraid server for that reason, so that I had full control over my data. Now, is it only here? No. But it's here and it's in multiple other locations, and I have a little bit more control over it because it is here and not elsewhere. Or I should say there's one copy of it here. And what's nice about that Unraid server is I can put any drive into it that I want. So with a lot of the RAID situations, solutions, you have to have all the same, let's say all 10 terabyte drives, let's say 5 of them. Here you can have a 4 terabyte, a 10, a 12, another 2, whatever, and it will do its thing. So that was one of the reasons I said, you know what, I need to do it this way in comparison to RAID. Because I've had problems with RAID in the past where I've actually lost data. Whereas like if you have a 5-disc RAID and 2 discs go, you're pretty much gone and all of your data is gone. Yeah. Whereas with this setup, the way they do it, it's a little bit different. Whereas if you lost 2 drives, you basically lose the data on those 2 drives, and you still have 3 drives that are fully accessible. So you don't lose everything, in that situation, which is good. Right. So, there's different ways to do it, but you need to have that backup. 110%. It's mandatory, and a lot of people don't. The same thing with card slots. That's why a lot of the pros are saying, right, we need to have 2 card slots. Well, they're not just saying that because they want an extra card slot. They're saying that is not to give them more room for shooting. They're saying that is because they want to have redundancy. They need to have a duplicate. If you're shooting something like, for example, I do sometimes some events locally. One of the places that I do events would be at Mar-a-Lago. Well, Mar-a-Lago is Trump's place. Well, I've been doing that for about 18 years or so before he was president, before anything, from the very beginning. But so I would do a lot of events there. They could be fashion shows, they could be all kinds of different things. But anyways, there's a lot of stars, a lot of famous people that go there. And a lot of times you only have 30 seconds with them. You have 40 seconds, you have 10 seconds, whatever, and then you're done. And they move on to doing whatever they're doing. So if you miss the shot is gone, and that's it. So if you have redundancy, you have that dual card, you have that copy, you don't have anything to worry about. Whereas if you don't, you're basically screwed. You can't do anything anymore. And you don't have a do-over with these people. So there's reasons to have there's a reason for everything, and once again that has to do with picking the camera and the right camera for your for what you do. A lot of those full frame 1,000 under $1,000 full frame cameras, a lot of them will not have dual card slot. They will not have full magnesium alloy bodies. They'll have semi-plastic, and they'll have a lot of other issues, maybe not as much weather resistance. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it that, even though it is a full frame and it does all this stuff, it's still not a professional camera, and I wouldn't use it as such. So it's like things to consider when you're picking something up, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Just talking about cloud storage, I looked into Idrive just the other day. I'm looking for another solution. I've been using Amazon S3 with some software here in the office, and it syncs. It basically takes the files from my server and it copies them over there, and it updates them progressively. So once they're there, they're there, and then you pay for storage, and then you pay for transfer, which is a problem, which is an issue if you have a large amount of files that you need to download again. So I've been looking for alternate solutions, and I came across this company called Idrive. I have not used them yet, so don't hold me to anything here, but looking at their plans and looking at the features, it's pretty reasonable. You could get 5 terabytes of storage for, right now they're running it for the full year is $52.12. Normally it's obviously it's more than that. It's probably like $6-7 a month or something like that. But what I like about it is you can sync all your computers to it, whether they be Macs, PCs, Linux. You can sync your other devices, your phones, your tablets, and you can use their platform as a synchronized storage solution.
Right.
This also works with, systems like Synology, where you have 2 NAS connected drives. Maybe you have one in your studio and you have one off-site. Mm-hmm. Those are syncing together. They're designed to be in sync, and yet they're backing up to the cloud, to Idrive, and they're synced in on Idrive as well. Something like that is fantastic.
Trevor, one of the things that is always a problem when it comes to NAS or when it comes to off-site backups that a lot of people have is the speed of their internet's up speed, right? Whereas it's very cheap to get extremely fast downward speed, right? But up speed is very difficult to get high speed. So that is an issue. When we're dealing with, for example, when we do video, we're doing like a 30-second ad spot or something like that, you're talking about just gigabytes and gigabytes and gigabytes of data, okay? Well, to upload that in the cloud would take a week, to get it all up there. So we really don't have the ability to do that. Now, having an off-site location, maybe in a different building, and still run that type of setup and do it through fiber or do it through a switch, like a network hub of some kind, and just moving it over there, that is not a problem. But a lot of people do have these issues where they don't have a gigabit up and a gigabit down, where you don't have a problem. A lot of people are still using UVerse that are literally like 12 meg down and 2 meg up. Well, at 2 meg up, at 64 gigabytes or more, it would never get there. So it's basically a moot point. You have to do stuff locally. So that's one of the things that I've heard when I was talking to some people about this, that's what they were saying. Well, I cannot even get this data into the cloud even if I wanted to. So that's always an issue too.
Yeah. Yeah, well, something that's interesting with this Idrive company is they actually have a service where they will send you an external USB drive, basically. You plug it in, it syncs up with their desktop software. So it
Gotcha.
recognizes it immediately. You tell it what files you want to put up onto iDrive. It loads them onto this drive. You mail it back to them in a prepaid thing. They dump it on their servers, and from that point forward, you start syncing. So, and it works in reverse. So if you have a massive catastrophe and you lose everything, they will actually load all of your data from their system onto a drive, ship it to you, you plug it in, and you resync. So it takes time to do that. If you have a catastrophe, you're not going to get it immediately. If you need all that, a couple terabytes of data back, at that point, you're going to, if you have to do a shipping method, you got to wait for the mail. So, I mean, it could be a week. But I look at it, from a professional photographer standpoint, even a hobbyist, all of the photos you have, all of the client photos that you have irreplaceable value to them. So it's your duty to make sure that those files are protected.
Right.
As we, I mean, the world has changed so much, and every time you watch the news, every time we turn around, it seems like there's another catastrophe going on. And sometimes, you really got to wonder, like, what the heck is going on? And being prepared for the unthinkable is important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Obviously, if there was a major disaster, we got bigger things to worry about than some digital files. But taking those precautions, I think, is really important.
Yeah, Stefano here was talking about he's using a MacBook Pro 1 terabyte with the Lacy too big, the 20 terabytes, and how he was doing it. Now, that's a great way to do it as far as using like a RAID 1 and mirroring things and having a direct duplicate of things, and using iCloud and taking their what their allotment is and then paying for extra and whatnot. So having things all over the place is really good, and it just goes back to how much data are you dealing with. My Unraid server that I currently use has 32 terabytes currently in there, but I can add drives at will. So 32 terabytes as of this moment is good, but I know, doing my analysis, by the end of this year, I'm probably going to have that filled, and I'm going to have to now make it larger. So, but having it live is a great way of doing it, and having a RAID server of some kind as a backup is it just simply makes sense. You almost have to do it today, especially now that we're doing, the files are getting bigger. We're shooting 4K. Everything is just bigger and bigger and bigger. And even the actual sensors, where we were shooting 12 megabyte files, now we're at like 40, 50, 60 meg files for every shot.
Right.
I mean, it's a lot of data. And then times that by 1,000.
Huge.
Yeah, it's just absolutely massive. Huge amount of data, for sure. Absolutely. So, it's one of those things to take into consideration, to think about, and really, figure out how you want to go forward with, securing your data. One of the other things that we were looking at in the stories this week, or it was actually last week, and it kind of trickled into this week, was the overheating issues with Canons, with their R5 and their R6, and how there was issues doing 4K. And then a few days later, it was said that now Sony had problems also with their A7S III, and then other people said no, and some people said yes, and it's just back and forth. You didn't test properly, you didn't do it right, or you were testing outside. Well, where else are you going to test? You can't be in a 72 degrees environment and say this thing tests flawlessly when you shoot, let's say, events and they're outside and it's 95 degrees with 100% humidity. So it all, you have to take that all into consideration, but then also take it all with a grain of salt, because you'll have the people that hate on the specific platform that say a lot of negativity, and then you have the fanboys now that just say, everything is fine, I don't have that problem, everything is great. So, it was definitely a major blow when it comes to Canon, this overheating thing, because
Sure.
they created a camera. Like I was saying, do you want video or do you want photo? All right. And you buy the camera accordingly. But today, a lot of people are like, well, how is the video? Even though they don't shoot video, they're using it as a baseline in their mind to think how good this camera is. Well, Canon basically did with their R5 what they did with the Canon EOS 5D Mark II when they put 1080p into the damn thing and everything blew up. It was like, oh my God, we can capture cinematic, stuff with this little, $1,500, $2,000 unit instead of a $100,000 rig, using EF lenses that are 30 years old or whatever. So it was a major thing. It was really, really big. And I think that's what Canon did also now with this R5. They threw in the kitchen sink. But like I said, months before they actually did it, when the rumors came out with what was this camera going to be able to do, as soon as I saw 8K and 30 frames per second and all of this stuff, I was all, you can't do it. What I was saying is it's going to blow up. It's going to nuke itself. It's going to cause some type of chain reaction, and everything was going to go up. And this is basically what happened. You can't do it. You just absolutely can't do it. There is a finite amount of data that you can process through a small little closed environment without overheating it. All right. The faster the data, the more the data, the quicker it has to write, and the larger the sensor gives you more data too. So they're at like 45 megapixels, and they're like, well, we can do it. Well, you can't do it. All right. It's just, it's just not possible to do it. So what they did is they ended up coming up with guidance. Well, if you shoot 8K at 30 frames, then at 30p, then it's 20 minutes you can record. And at 4K at 60, it's like 35 minutes. But if you do that and it starts overheating, well, you can sit it, to the side. And now if you sit it for 10 minutes, you'll get 3 additional minutes. Or if you sit it for 20 minutes, you'll get 8 additional minutes. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But this is exactly what ended up happening. So, so now we're on this heating issue. And I think it's the same thing that's going to happen even with Sony. I think Sony, the A7S III, is going to have heating issues. If some people say yes, some people say no. But the difference is, they're sitting on a 12.2, 12.1 megapixel sensor compared to a 45 megapixel sensor. Literally like 4 times, whatever, bigger, almost 4 times bigger. So 4 times the amount of data. How the heck is Canon going to do it? If you don't vent it, if you don't have an inlet and an outlet to be able to exhaust the heat, it's just impossible. I don't see it. I mean, I know you read the story too. It was just crazy.
Yeah, and obviously there's some issues there. So what I would want to know is, to what intensity or to what extent is it overheating? Is it like on the verge of a meltdown? Is it gonna burn up? Or is it getting too hot to the point where it's tripping the internal sensors and telling it to shut down, just for safety precautions? If it's a minor overheating, it probably can be fixed. It probably can be fixed with, firmware update to control processes happening within the computer, potentially a replacement of an internal part here or there that dissipates heat better or something. If it's really on the verge of blowing up, then obviously it's a defective design, and they're going to have to go back to the drawing board and get something that works. I mean, purchasing add-ons like, lens mount fans and dissipating vents and stuff like that. It's like, I'm not paying $4,000 for a camera that's going to blow up unless I pay additional money to put on a fitting on there. So, to help vent it a little bit more. That's just ridiculous. I mean, and if I'm buying a camera to do video, I want to be able to do video without restrictions.
Right.
If it will shoot for 30 minutes continuously, I want it to shoot for 30 minutes continuously, no matter what conditions I'm in.
Right.
I mean, obviously, if I'm, got it, you know, sitting in a room that's 200 degrees because I've got a furnace in there and I'm baking something,
Yeah.
then okay, that's out of the range of usage. But if you need to be able to use it outside to shoot weddings and you want to shoot the ceremony and the ceremony's an hour long, and in theory it should do it, then it should do it. You shouldn't need these guidelines. You shouldn't need attachments to fix things. It should do it out of the gate. Now, back to purpose-built tools. Maybe if that's what your need is, maybe if you need to be able to shoot for that hour, then maybe the R5 is not the right tool for you. Maybe you need to get, a purpose-built machine, a C100 or something like that, that's going to be able to just shoot continuously. So it really, you gotta look at what the tool is, what it's designed for, and what you're going to be able to do with it. But yeah, I'm not impressed with that at all. I mean, I was very disappointed when I heard the specs. I'm thinking, wow, this is fantastic.
It's just crazy. Absolutely. But, yeah, Hero Shots here. He says, I can't wait to get my R6, and I'm kind of envious. I don't have one on order as of yet. R6 says as long as it doesn't overheat, and shooting stills, I'm good. And yes, the R6 and the R5 shooting stills are not going to have any problems at all, in my personal opinion. There's no way they're going to overheat shooting stills, period. The amount of data that has to be processed when you're shooting video, I mean, just think about it. At 60 frames per second, you're dealing with 60 frames in comparison to 1 frame, and that's every second. So there's a ton of data that's being processed. And for example, with the R5, you're sitting at 45 megapixels. That is a lot. That is a ton of data to be able to process. And I honestly don't understand how Canon can even do it. And that's just, me thinking about it and trying to, rationalize the whole thing and say, it just simply doesn't make sense. I don't know how they can possibly make it happen and not overheat with the video that they're capturing. It just doesn't make sense to me because it is a sealed camera, period. It's a sealed small box. I don't get it. So, it's one of those things, do you believe everything, that you're hearing? Do you not? But like, Hot Hero Shots over there says that they're going to be using it for stills. With stills, you don't have anything to worry about. It's going to be a no-brainer, and it should be, the R6 and the R5 should be amazing. I'm kind of, I shoot 1Ds, for my high-end, professional work when it comes to stills. I'm shooting 1Ds or I'm shooting some 5Ds. But I'm also shooting the C series, C100, C200, 300, 500s, whatever, for doing that type of work. And why is that? Well, the C series have built-in fans. And that means that, like you said, if you need to record for 30 minutes, you can. If you need to record, for example, if I do a seminar or something, and I need to record for 4 hours, I can. So, just flopping out, just taking out the cards and replacing them, and that's it, and just keep on going. And the fans will fire up, and the thing will keep cool, and you never have to worry about corrupt data or anything. So there is something to be said about getting the right camera for the job. So, but a lot of people are looking at this as, oh my God, Canon, once again has just screwed up. Whereas to me, I did appreciate that they came out there right away and said, listen, this is the problem. It's going to overheat, and this is the guidelines, and we're giving them to you. So don't buy it if you don't like these guidelines, which I think was good. But a lot of the companies don't say nothing, and then later on it's happening. They're like, oh yeah, by the way, Canon was very transparent about that. So I did appreciate that. Now, should it overheat? No. I personally don't like when any of the manufacturers use their clients as beta testers. And that's what happens a lot of times, And if they did enough work with these cameras, they should know that the thing overheats. And I don't want to hear about your overheating data when it comes to 72 degrees. All right? And who has that perfect 72, 73 degrees where they're recording? It doesn't happen very often, okay? Especially if
No.
you're doing events, if you're doing outside work, if you're doing landscape, if you're doing sporting events, you're out there in miserable weather all the time. You can't, I don't want to hear about 72-degree data. It's absolutely useless, right? So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
but this is what they do. You know, all the manufacturers do this.
Yeah. I mean, the don't sell a product as something that it's not. If it's unable to do any type of decent work with 8K because the thing is going to blow up, like you can't shoot more than just for a couple minutes, then don't sell it as a camera that's shooting 8K video and beautiful this and that and the other thing. I mean, you know, if your need is to shoot clips or something that are going to be edited together later or what have you, I mean, I suppose then that might do the job. But again, if your gig is video, get a video camera.
Right.
It's just unfortunate that they kind of are selling it as this killer hybrid camera and with restrictions, you know. So I don't want a killer hybrid camera that has restrictions. I want one that's going to work.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no.
I mean, for me right now, if you were to say, you know, you want the R5 to do video and stills, and I'd say no, I get something else. I get something else for stills. I get something else to do video.
Yeah, I would probably do an R6 for video. It's probably going to be a little bit better for, you know, overheating issues, I'm going to guess. Smaller sensor, less data that it has to deal with, you know.
Right.
We got a message here in the live chat down here about Stefano. He was using the you know, older cameras because he really likes using rolls of film and just kind of slowing down, and he was kind of tired of the whole megapixel wars and all that thing. And you know, and that's awesome. You know, I still love shooting film. I do you know, I still shoot large massive, like, you know, 40 by 60s, sometimes some big images that I just absolutely love doing. And I shoot those are all black and white, high contrast. I just absolutely love. And I literally use an old Minolta SRT 102. And I love it. I love it. Just getting back down to the nitty gritty and not having a screen on the back to chimp on, and just knowing your craft and being able to come up with some amazing fine art work. So I love doing that also. And the whole idea of the megapixel wars, a lot of even the noobs out there are understanding that megapixels are not really the end all be all. And a lot of them are understanding that dynamic range, low light sensitivity, a lot of things like these are more keywords that they need to hone in on. And that is what's been happening. There's been a lot of cameras out there that the folks aren't even talking about the megapixels as much anymore. And they're saying, so how does it handle low light? What does the noise look like? You know, so if I'm shooting in low light, does the thing go just to garbage, or can it handle it? And then you'll see a lot of these cameras say, oh yeah, you know, we'll capture at, you know, 400,000 ISO and whatnot. But in reality, once you get to like 30,000 ISO, the thing looks like a hell of garbage anyways, and you don't want to use it, you know, for any type of professional work. I mean, can you capture it? Yeah, you know, sure. Some of these cameras, like I know the Sony, the A7S3, the new sensor, this sensor is amazing. It captures basically in nighttime where you couldn't even see the subject with the sensor being so sensitive. 12 megapixels now, 12.1 I think, but it just crushes low light, okay? Which is great, you know, and that some people are looking for that. Because I'm telling you, if you're shooting an event, you're like a wedding photographer, how much crappy light do you shoot in every day, you know, or every weekend? A ton. The lighting is horrendous, okay? And you can't always be firing off, you know, flash because, you know, the rabbi or the priest or the officiant doesn't want it. You know, you can't be going through this thing, you go bang, 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 you know, it just doesn't work that way. So sometimes you have to capture in extreme high ISO and then hope for the best later on in post-production. Well, these cameras will allow you to do that today. So people are looking for them even more. So I do like that. I do like that the let's just say the pixel wars are kind of over. They'll never be over, but they're kind of. I do believe, and I've said this
Yeah.
in the past on my channel, that I do think that medium format will be the new professional camera out there, and full frame will be the new APS-C, and APS-C will be the new micro four thirds, and micro four thirds will go away. And micro four thirds will end up being your iPhone 15 or whatever, shooting 8K. I don't know, whatever.
Right.
With
Right.
literally a micro four thirds sensor in, in the phone. Who knows? It could happen. So, but
Yeah.
medium format for me, if I do fashion work, Trevor, I'm using a Hasselblad. Matter of fact, we did a shoot together years back. And we brought in Hasselblads. We did a really killer fashion shoot for a designer down here in Miami. It was the first time, right, Trev, that it was about
Yeah.
28 degrees in Miami. When does that ever happen? It was freezing. And these girls were just
Yeah.
unbelievably amazing dealing with it. We went onto a private island on a boat. It was just so blistering cold. But so anyways, not to get into the story, but the bottom line is, why do we do that? The reason being is we need a ton of pixels because the fashion designer or the magazine or the ad folks, they need a lot of pixels because sometimes they need a bust up shot, but then they need the exact same shot where it's just head. All right, but it needs to be tack
Right.
sharp. Sometimes you need to, that you're doing a runway shoot and you're doing full body. They need to be able to crop into torso up and then crop into the face. Let's say if they're selling makeup too, so they're selling shoes
Yeah.
to a hat, and that needs to be that one shot. So to do that with 12 megapixels, it will never happen. It would look like
No.
crap.
No.
So you need 40, 50, 60 plus 100 megapixels to be able to do it. So is pixels dead? No, but it's more on the professional side at this point, where professionals need it for certain instances. Not for everything, but for certain things, we still need a lot of megapixels.
Yeah, and it's not just about the quantity of megapixels, it's about the quality of them as well. I mean, I do remember it, that fashion shoot was a long time ago, and I remember we had the 40, what was it, the 40 megapixel Hassi, medium format, and you shot side by side with the 5D Mark II. And I remember distinctly when you were editing photos and comparing the two, you were like, there is no comparison between the 5D Mark II, 20 something megapixel image and the Hasselblad image. And not just resolution, but the overall quality of the image was just so much better. It was so much richer. The detail, that's huge. And again, that's a purpose-built machine. I mean, you got that. We got that for a specific reason, and it worked fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's just like you said, purpose built. We have Kilo Hotel.
Yep.
He says, I shoot 20 megapixels 1D X2 and a 50 megapixels 5D SR. The 1D files look so good that the 5D rarely gets use anymore. And that goes back to understanding that pixels are not pixels. This pixel is not the
Right.
same as that pixel. How big
That's right.
is that pixel that you're using? How much data are you binning? How much data do you have to throw away with certain cameras? Okay, and they do that a lot. There's a lot of issues with pixels. That people don't understand that a 20 megapixel, like Kilo is saying here, 20 megapixel compared to 50 megapixel is not necessarily the same pixels. So having good quality, high dynamic range, high sensitivity. Is mission critical, and that's the difference between a good camera for what you're looking to do or a mediocre camera. And sometimes it doesn't have
Right.
to do with price all the time either. So you really need to look at some of these things. It just depends on what you're doing. And like you're saying with the Hasselblad shoot that we did for the fashion designer, looking at those 5D Mark II at the time images in comparison to the Hassi, I think we were using a 40, I believe. I think it was a 40.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Yeah.
when you look at the two, they're not even in the same ballpark.
No.
Okay, it's just
No.
not even close, period. And that's, yes, you have more megapixels, but the medium format, the size of those pixels, it's just unbelievable. And you can zoom
Yeah.
in to hairs, whereas, the other camera will literally just give up. It just cannot go any
Yeah. It'll just
closer.
pixel out. Yeah.
Yeah, you get to a
Yeah.
certain point and you're like, that's it. I don't got any more. And then
Yeah.
the Hasselblad will go more. And you're like, you need more? And it
Yeah.
goes more. You need some more? And it goes more, So there,
Yeah. Yeah.
so like I said, there is a camera for everyone, and it just depends on what you're looking for. Now, Fujifilm is one of those companies that have really said, you know what, we are not going to get into the whole bloodbath of full frame. Okay, we're going to stick with APS-C. Just do it the absolute best that we can, make an unbelievable APS-C camera with their H line, with their XT line, XT4 now. We have an H2 probably coming soon. Anyways, we're going to do that, and then we're going to go down this medium format road. And Trevor, they have crushed the medium format scene. Why is that?
Yep.
They're giving the quality of a Hasselblad, which would be, let's say, a Rolls Royce, on the cost of a Toyota. It's unfreaking believable what format. Like I said, you're not going to use it for sports, but if you're doing portrait, if you're doing landscape, if you're doing anything like that, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's a great way to go,
Yeah.
an unbelievable way to go. So it's something that I think everyone should look into. If you are a professional, look at a Fujifilm medium format. See if you can rent one in and try it. It's very hard to go back to full frame once you shoot medium format. Just trust me on that. Trust me. Anyways, let's get into some of the chat comments here and see where we left off here. Yeah. So let me just say that we're going to run this probably for, I want to say, about 45 minutes to an hour. I don't want to go too much longer. The last time we ran it for way too long, I had you on here for a long time.
We're at an hour right now.
Yeah. So I think, right,
we're gonna want to cut it soon.
Yeah. What I'd like to do is put out there, since it is Friday, a lot of people are just kind of like, sitting back, they're getting ready for the weekend. I want to put out there any kind of questions that you guys have. It doesn't matter if it has to do with the sub $1,000 full frame, or if it has to do with the ransomware that we were talking about earlier, or with the overheating issues. Any questions that you have, or anything you guys want to talk about for the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, go ahead and in the chat window, throw it in there, and we'll kind of discuss it a little bit before we get off. But anyways, I just have a question for you, Trevor. As far as the camera that you're currently using, you're using APS-C. Are you going to think about moving up to full frame? Will you stick with APS-C, number two? And number three, does it matter if you pick up a DSLR or a mirrorless? It's kind of three questions in one. Like, where is your head at as far as going on, with a new camera? Are you shooting stills or video and this kind of thing?
Yeah, so I guess it's really going to depend on whether I want to stick with Canon or not. So right now I have a Canon, just a Rebel T2i. It's an old camera, but it does a great job. And I have several EF lenses for it. So if I want to stay in the Canon camp, I may, look at maybe another DSLR. Maybe like the 90D, because it's going to be great for video.
Right.
It's going to do a nice job for stills, and it will probably meet the needs that I have from that standpoint. The mirrorless, the R6, is very appealing, but I think it might be a little too soon. Not even from a financial standpoint. I mean, at that point, I wouldn't be buying a new body just for the sake of buying a new body. I'd be buying it for a reason. So if the reason justifies the additional expense, that's fine. Obviously, I would need to either use an adapter or just go with native lenses, which I would probably want to go with native lenses. So that increases the investment. But I think it's too soon to jump into that Canon R series until we really see how it fleshes out with the heating problem. Once we get more real world tests, see whether they're recalled, that whole thing. And, we'll see what happens from there.
Yeah, the overheating is going to be an issue, and I think a lot of people are on the fence if they want to go forward with it right now. I think Canon did themselves, not too much of a favor with this whole issue, but we've seen Canon do this in the past. It's almost like they don't care. They swing for the stands. They're never, when they do these big moves, like they did with the 5D Mark II, they do not do this base hit, second base hit type of thing. They literally swing for a home run. And I believe that they got there when it comes to stills. I think that they have, maybe hit a third base, when it comes to video because of the heat issue. Some people will never experience heat problems because they don't record for long durations of time. So it's always use case, right? So where do you sit with it? Is it something that, do you, shoot for a long time? Or are you shooting like little 5-minute clips? What are you doing? I think it is something that, we all need to look at when it comes to buying a camera, whatever the camera is. For you, if you're doing video and, if you want to stick in the Canon camp, I mean, yeah, a 90D is an amazing camera. I'm shooting a 5D right now. But honestly, looking at this 80D, I mean, it works fantastically, but I would seriously consider just simply going with, like, for example, one of their M series, a little tiny camera, okay? Instead of, because you're looking at half the price of a 90D, and it's going to be doing just about the same thing. Is it, as good? Probably not, but in some cases, yes. So it really depends on what you're trying to do. Being an 80D, this is not a full frame. This is APS-C. And the same thing going, with an M series. You're looking at APS-C. The difference is you have to pick up new M glass, right? And we never know how long is that glass going to be around, because they can very easily say, you know what, we don't want to do M series anymore. The thing is with Canon, though, is Canon makes just a major portion of their money on selling their EOS KISS series, which is the EOS M series, the M50. Okay, they make so much money. I mean, a ton of money. And what happens is it's very hard for them to say, oh, we're going to discontinue the M series because we want everyone to move into the R. It's just, I don't see it happening. So I do see.
No, it's too popular of a camera.
Yeah, I have to agree. I do. It just makes them so much money, there's no reason to do it. And I think that's why I don't think that we're going to see DSLRs go the way of the dinosaur as of yet. The reason being is there's a lot of people out there that still want to buy a DSLR, and they don't want a mirrorless camera as of yet. Some people don't like an EVF. Some people like an OVF and just see the world as it is in comparison to an EVF where you're actually seeing it augmented, like an augmented reality. So, everyone has a different way of viewing their images, where you'll see some people here that will love to shoot film, and then, and then other people will just absolutely love shooting a medium format digital. So it just, you have a lot of different folks, and it depends on what you're doing with it, and that's really about it. I have to say, once again, thanks, special thanks over there to Long Rider for the super chat. Really do appreciate the support. That is fantastic. Thank you very, very much. So kind of moving forward here, we have that, a lot of the folks that we talk to here on the channel that we see in the, let's say, the chats under a lot of the videos, they're always asking about which camera is the best, and that's why I was asking you, Trevor, which one is the best for what you're doing. And for me, there's times where, I don't know. It's hard to be able to tell people what is best for that specific time, because it really depends on what you're doing with it, right?
Yeah, and to be honest, all the cameras out there are pretty darn good. It's just if you're coming into a camera new for the first time, you don't have any equipment right now, or the equipment is old and you don't want to use it anymore, it's no longer serving its purpose, and you're willing to make a switch of brands. I mean, every brand has quality products. So I don't think you can go wrong by brand. Now it's just a matter of, which body, which lenses, that type of thing. I mean, for me, having some EF lenses already, I mean, my gut would tell me to stay in the DSLR camp so I can use the lenses I have. But on the other hand, I need lenses that are designed for video.
Right.
So at that point, maybe switching bodies and, going with a mirrorless, because I'm going to need new lenses anyway that will accommodate video better, then it's not that big of a deal. So I could go to Sony. I don't think I would go Nikon. I don't know. I don't really have anything against Nikon, but I think I would probably go Sony before I went Nikon.
Yeah, well, and that's definitely, some people are, very brand oriented and say, well, I don't want to go this way, or I don't want to go that way. It's, for so many years we've had Canon and Nikon. Basically, I call it, one body and there's two legs. You have Canon, you have Nikon, and Canon would take a step forward, and then Nikon would take a step forward, and then Canon, and then Nikon. And that's how the industry moved forward. Well, now we have this third leg. Can we say that? Yeah. We have a third leg, which is Sony. All right. And they are kind of moving, all right, to the Nikon spot, which doesn't, I'm sure, make Nikon or Nikon shooters happy. But it's just, that is what has been happening. So yes, if I was to change systems, today, would I, go from Canon to Nikon? Probably not. I'd probably go Canon to Sony, but then I'm not really too much of a fan of Sony's, let's say, touchy-feely, the ergonomics. I just, I like a little bit, I have bigger hands. So it just depends, And for me, the one thing that I did like, and from the very beginning, what Sony did is they got people into their system using non-Sony glass. This was before Sony even had glass. When you and I were over, I remember we were at we were at PPE, Photo Plus Expo in Manhattan one year. This was years ago, when the A7 came out, and it was like, oh yeah, use this A7, try it out. It's something that we just are going to be releasing. We're like, what the hell is this? Yeah, no, it doesn't have a mirror. It's mirrorless, full frame. And I remember saying, wow, this is amazing. This is something that is going to be unbelievable. But I remember at the time, it had no glass. So it's like, oh, use your Canon glass. That was their exact words. Use your Canon glass and our adapter and to shoot our A7. And we tried that. I remember at the booth, and the autofocus was just just crap.
Yeah.
The autofocus was god-awful, and it was slow. It was horrid. It was horrid. But I remember when we, got back to the room, we were talking about that whole thing. We said, this is something that we really need to keep an eye on, because this is something amazing. It's garbage right now, complete garbage. But if Sony could actually keep it going, it could really turn into something. And that's exactly what Sony did. They went to the second edition, then they moved to the R and the S, and they made basically a camera that was specific for video, smaller sensor, and then specific for capturing stills, and that was a larger sensor with the R series, and they really crushed it. And what Sony did really well was put out that A7 Mark III. That A7 III was what really brought a lot of new blood to Sony, all right? A lot of people migrated to them. I think that Nikon and Canon need to do the same thing. And I really don't think that either of them have a A7 III. I don't think so. Now, that R6 that they just are working on or coming out with, that really could be possibly. Depends on the overheating, all the rest of the nasty junk, but it could possibly be that. But I know for sure Nikon doesn't have anything like that, for definitely. So, these manufacturers really need to take heed and watch what Sony's doing, because they are crushing it. You know, third-party glass is now everywhere. You can get it from Tamron, from whoever, and you have it. And their G Master line is basically every bit as good as Canon's L glass.
Oh,
Same
yeah.
thing with Nikon. So do they have as much? Absolutely not. But they're working on it. So, you know, they're really, you know, it's something to watch. And I've always watched them.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. The technology has really come a long ways in these cameras, and has really given us all a lot of options to select from. So competition's good. You know, keep innovating, keep developing. You know, it's all better for us in the long run,
Right.
as hobby shooters, even as professionals. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyways, before we get off here and close this down, I want to just ask you, where can people find you? Trevor Current, the stuff that you do, where can they find it? I know you do a lot when it comes to web hosting and web design, web development, and all the rest. Where can they go to find you if they need any of that, any of those services?
Yeah, you can go over to my website. It's currentmediagroup.net. That's my main business site. We have a couple other properties that are out there in the wild, but for web work, that's the place you want to be. You can connect with me on Twitter. It's at Trevor Current. I jump in and out of there every once in a while. I'm not in there as frequently as I once was, but you know, we still use it as a platform.
Gotcha, gotcha. And with my stuff, as I always say, don't forget to download my ebook. I always like to push that because I put that out years ago and a lot of people absolutely love it. Go check that out over at jcristina.com/ebook. Also, any of the products that I've designed over the years, go check them out. The focus pyramid for dialing in your autofocus for DSLRs. That is just, that we've sold tens of thousands of those, hundreds of thousands, probably at this point, probably well over 100,000 worldwide, even to schools, they use it. So check that out, as well as the Aurora Camera Care products for cleaning sensors. And we have the PRT, which is the photo reference tool. So check those out. A lot of these are going to end up in the next 2 or 3 weeks. This is a little tidbit that I don't know if I should even say, but they're going to be ending up on B&H and one of their specials coming up soon. So check them out there. You can buy them, all of my products, at jcristina.com. Use promo code YT20 at checkout and you get 20% off. Or of course you can buy them over at B&H Photo and Video, or on Amazon, whatever is better. There's a lot of people that say, hey, where can I get you? I'm in Europe or whatnot. I don't even want to get into the Europe thing with Amazon over there. It's just been just a mess. But the best way, if you're overseas, just order them from us. We'll send them right out to you, and they get there pretty quickly. Even with the whole coronavirus thing, everything's going pretty quick. So anyways, guys, I just want to thank you, as always, for being here. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends, tell your family. Let them know if you enjoy the content. Once again, special thanks over there for that super chat. I was like, wow, super chat came in. That was really, really nice, for supporting the channel from Long Rider. Thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate it. Also, don't forget to click the bell icon over here. That bell notification button will basically tell you whenever we go live or when there's a new video out or anything. So go ahead and do that. That would be absolutely fantastic. So that's it, guys. We're out of here. Thank you so much, Trevor, for being here. We're out.
Yep, my pleasure.
We will see you in the next vlog. Many blessings to you and your family. Stay safe and stay healthy. Take care, guys.